Hi Stephen, thanks for the footage and sorry in the delay of getting things across to you as explained during the text. Anyway, the way I'd like to do this is rather than do one longer critique based on the good work that you've done thus far, I'd like to split this up into two sessions with a short gap, so like two parts, if you will, of this first lesson. So initially I'm going to give you some advice on the rates at which you do things and a few guidelines to adhere to whilst practicing, mainly at setup and a few feels throughout the swing. But nothing major. You're doing a great job. Really love the way you stand to it. I think the only change I would make at setup here, I pick your driver out because judging by your text, that's the club that's causing you the most problems at the moment. The handle location should be more, rather than back here towards the belt buckle, push the handle forward. And if that means it wants to go up a little bit when viewed from down the line, so be it. It won't go up a lot. But push it forward so that the handle points towards the centre of the lead hip. So just a slight change at address. That's going to make it easier for you to get the hands working inwards and easier for you to hit out at the golf ball. You've still got to do that, it's got to be executed, but as you push the handle forward, you shifts the swing's direction out to the right a little bit. And the same when you move it when viewed from down the line. If we move the fat handle forward and up fractionally, then that repositions the swing direction a little bit more out to the right. Not as excessive as the arrow would suggest there, but you get the idea. When the handle's down and back, that makes it easier to hit across the golf ball. If you're then trying to hit a draw, you need to make some compensatory movements at speed through the hit, which can be difficult to manage and start to produce quite an erratic shot pattern. If the handle starts pushing forward at speed from, let's say, P6, shaft parallel to the ground in the downswing, in an attempt to hit out at the ball, you start to, if it's done excessively, shorten the arc. And when you shorten the arc, you run the risk of really low face contact. You mentioned occasionally topping the golf ball, which I'll come to another small area in the swing that I want you to consider with that as well. So that's the little change at setup. Nothing really untoward other than that. When we then look at the swing itself, I'm going to view it from face on first. What we are trying to achieve is a stable upper centre, so it's a purple dot, and a stable pelvis from setup P1 to the top of the backswing P4. What we see with yourself is because you're focusing primarily on that shoulder down, keeping the weight forward, you see the head move sort of down a little bit and forward a little bit, and you can see the pelvis moves substantially towards the target during the early part of the backswing. Now, one of the reasons, or the main reason for that, is because during the backswing, we do want, as you know, the trail leg to straighten and the lead knee to flex. So there's a change in flex of the knees. This change in flex should be incremental throughout the swing, throughout the backswing. With yourself, it's too much too soon. So by the time you get to P3, most of the extension, if not all of the extension in the trail leg, has been satisfied. And what that does is that pushes that trail hip behind you a little bit too quick. So the rate at which you straighten the right leg is a little bit excessive. I'm just going to give you some numbers on that just to sort of frame it for you. They're not definitive numbers, don't feel like you have to adhere to them. But if your trail knee is flexed 25 degrees at setup, we would want to try and lose 7 degrees from P1 to P2, a further 7 degrees from P2 to P3, and then a further 7 degrees P3 to P4. So the right leg is straightening incrementally throughout the swing. When the right leg straightens too much too soon, the hands and the arms run the risk of being sucked behind us a little bit too much, as we see here, and the club appears a little bit more across the line than would be ideal. I'll come to your downswing down the line shortly. And it's one of the main reasons why you do a pretty good job of staying centered. You don't move around too much. I would like to see the pelvis a little bit more stable than that. I think you do a pretty good job with your shoulder turn, nothing really majorly problematic, but you can see that the hands get sucked in behind you a little bit too much. Now then, as you come through the golf ball, taking them from face on, what we see is we see the upper centre and lower centre moving forward. So that's a little bit excessive. The lead shoulder stays down a little bit too long because of what the lead knee's doing. So this is all good stuff, but it's just been overdone a little bit at this stage. We need to balance things out. We now tend to sort of have to stand up pretty quick through the hit. And there's a very slight dividing of the elbows. Now, based on your text, when I look at these swings, it doesn't look like either ball was topped. And there is a lot of good stuff in this swing, so I've got to read between the lines a little bit here. And the elbows are definitely tending to divide a little bit. The head is definitely tending to raise a little bit too excessively. Chest pulling away from the ball. And we see this particularly from down the line. You see your chest pull away, your head move out of that green box. Now, if that is done excessively, that'll raise the arc and cause you to hit the bottom of the club or top the golf ball completely. So again, it's the rates at which we do things that are very important. So trail leg must straighten during the backswing, but we don't want it to straighten dramatically early in the backswing. So that's number one thing to consider after the setup change of pushing the handle forward a little bit with your driver. Set up with your iron is a little bit more appropriate, so I'm not too worried about that. What I've also put on the screen here in your takeaway down the line, I'm just going to go back, is just to help you with your arms in piece. I put some purple dots on the line on the between the arm and the torso. That's pressure point number 4. Pop a head cover under your arm and really feel like you're going to squeeze that head cover during your backswing. And what that's going to do is that's going to encourage the lead arm to come in a little bit more and the hands to trace the arc a little bit more in the early part of the takeaway. It will also encourage a little bit of a different tilt in the shoulders, maybe get the lead shoulder working down a little bit more, in a more appropriate manner, and could actually encourage and should encourage this knee to straighten out a little bit more gradually, creating a situation where the trail hip works up and around rather than just bang straight in behind you. So it's just a tidying up mechanism, that's all. So pressure point 4, head cover under the lead arm, squeezed at about mid bicep. Don't worry if it comes out during the downswing, just try and squeeze it during the takeaway. Now what we've got to do is try and maintain our inclination for a little bit longer. Try and discourage the elbows from dividing, that chest from pulling away, etc., etc. So there's the up and down or the vertical movement in the golf swing that needs to be managed. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a task-driven drill to encourage a better sequencing of that vertical movement during the hitting of your driver. Now this is not an easy drill to do. It's something that you want to do as part and parcel of every practice session that you have. And that is hit some drivers without a T-peg. So just chuck the ball on the turf, hit some drivers off the turf. This doesn't steepen your angle of attack. In order to hit a driver off the ground, your angle of attack must be relatively level, which is a great starting point for driver, by the way. What it does encourage you to do is use the ground efficiently. So if you have to hit a driver off the deck because of the lack of loft and because of where the ball is in the stance, you have to get down into the ground enough to reach a ball that's on the floor and then push out of the ground enough to shallow out the angle of attack and clip the ball off the top. If you don't go down enough, you'll top it. If you go down but then don't come up sufficiently, then again you're going to come in quite steep and you probably hit the ground behind the ball. So it's a very good task-driven exercise. As you get better at hitting the driver off the ground, the sequencing of the swing is getting better. This is sort of the stuff that you can analyse through 3D screening, etc. But obviously we don't need that. We're out in the middle of a practice ground hitting balls. We want something we can do. So it's going to improve your movement in regards to that vertical going down and then up, like you see the best players in the world. Every golfer does it to a degree, obviously. So some little changes there in regards to what is at the moment a fundamentally very good golf swing. Just a few, it's little bits at the moment that you need to change, not massive amounts. What I'd like you to do is film yourself doing the drill with the driver off the deck. Film yourself making the changes that I've just discussed with you, where you trap the head cover under the arm, you push the handle forward, and you concentrate on straightening the lead leg a little bit more gradually rather than getting it all in there by P2, maybe P2.5. Once you've done that, send me the footage across so that I know you're doing it correctly. Practice it for about a week to 10 days and then send me some more footage. And what I'll do then is I'll do a nice little comparison between this swing and the current swing, just to then add some detail to the moves that we need to work on. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop me a line on WhatsApp. You've got my number, and look forward to watching this one progress over the coming months.